In 1975, a group of loggers reported seeing a strange light in the forest. One was struck by a mysterious blue beam, fell unconscious, and later vanished. He reappeared 5 days later, and his experience sparked one of the most famous alien abduction cases in history. Today, we discuss the Travis Walton Incident. This is Red Web. Welcome back, Task Force, to another episode of Red Web, the podcast all about unsolved mysteries, true crime, and the paranormal. I am your resident mystery enthusiast, Trevor Collins, and joining me hearing this case for the very first time, Alfredo Diaz.
This sounds like an awesome episode. All about the sci-fi. We did Movie Club earlier. We did Underwater, which was like sci-fi horror.
Yeah.
And so like we're staying on theme here a little bit. Yeah, no, this incident is very interesting. Like lights in the forest, a blue beam.
Oh, yeah.
And then someone disappears and comes back. I'm very wary of that person from here on out for the rest of my life. They could be activated or turn or transform at any time.
They could have been replaced.
Or try to like assimilate you to whatever the heck is going on. So I think this is going to be a banger of an episode. And then on top of that, I feel like I might be running into an incident myself.
Okay, hold on.
And this is where now that we have video,
Yeah.
I seem to have a little bit of redness right here.
Wait, what am I looking at?
Like a little bit of redness.
Okay, yeah, full
right?
screening you.
And it's just newly developing as we speak. And I have changed nothing except start making my own iced chai starting to this episode.
Okay.
Let me tell you, it's delicious. So I'm not going to stop drinking it until I can conclude that it's correlating with each other.
Okay.
I drink Starbucks iced chai all the time. I decided to make my own because it'd be less expensive. But now I seem to have this weird rash developing on my chin. So we'll see how it goes this episode.
Okay, so here's what I'm learning. Two things. One, you're absolutely allergic to whatever you put in that. Two, you've been body swapped alien style with whoever you used to be because the Fredo I know chugs chai. And so if this Fredo's allergic, I think you have a Travis Walton incident on your hands, or I do on our hands.
I am a chai chugger. I might have been swapped. That would be really unfortunate if you were swapped and you think that like you're a copy of someone, but you believe that you were the real person.
Yeah, but then it's like that Arnold Schwarzenegger movie where you pull down your eyelid and then you see a couple dots and you realize you're actually a clone.
Yes.
I always forget the name of that movie, but
it's Total Recall.
It's close. Hold on.
There's our time to movie mention.
It's so fast. It's the sixth day. I wanted to say the fifth element, which I know is wrong. It's the sixth day.
Sixth day.
I have to imprint that in my memory. But speaking of movies, it's so perfect that you brought this up because this case, I'm sure you've seen it or at least heard of it, inspired the movie Fire in the Sky from the early 90s. One of the most horrific perspectives of alien abduction possible. These aliens are so scary looking. And this doesn't happen in this episode, so, it's inspired by, but man, there's a point in that movie where the person who's abducted is laying on a table, this thin latex sheet covers them, and then like vacuum seals them, and so they're trying to get out, and they're screaming, and it's like claustrophobia central. It is truly the most terrifying look at abduction cases, but...
I'm looking at it right now. And it looks terrifying.
Yeah.
Absolutely terrifying. And the aliens themselves do not look friendly.
Mm-mm.
They do not look horny.
No.
They look sadistic.
They look
and
bony.
That's like the kind you don't want.
Right. Nothing here says ET phone home. Nothing here says thicked up aliens. I might want to step into that ship. None of it's good.
No, they look creepy.
Yeah. And with that said, this case, like I said, is one of the most famous UFO abduction cases of all time. It's permeated pop culture, as you can tell, but also it's pretty controversial. And we'll talk about all of that. We'll talk about the incident, what leads to the controversy, what the theories are behind this. Did this happen? Is this something else? We'll break it all down as we normally do. But before we do, a huge shout out, as always, to our task force members. If you want to support us directly, you can get access to weekly exclusives like Fredo's Movie Club. We have our behind the scenes podcast called Break Room. We do gameplay videos every month, and you can get all of that and more at redwebpod.com. So shout out to Buff Scientist members Janelle Smith and Lynn. And then, of course, our squonks of the week, TGYK94 and Zarathustra. You guys are awesome. Thank you guys for supporting us. Fredo, as I like to do, let me take you back in time just keep thinking about that latex sheet stripping you down and... Okay. It's 1975. 22-year-old Travis Walton is working as a logger in the Apache Sitgreaves National Forest. Now, this is a national park in the U.S. consisting of east central Arizona, and it goes all the way into New Mexico, but we're talking about the kind of center Arizona area. And for our international listeners, that's in the southwest of the United States. So he and his crew totaled 7 people, and it was led by Michael Rogers, and they were tasked with thinning out the trees in the Turkey Springs area by the end date of August 1975. Now, the closest village to where we're talking about is Heber, Arizona, and it's 12 miles north of Turkey Springs. We're kind of out there. It's a little bit far removed from the big cities like Phoenix, which is over 130 miles away, or where the crew lived in Snowflake, which was 30 miles north of this location. So at the time, they were running a little bit behind, and they received an extension that took it out to November of that year. Then, on November 5th, Rogers was driving the crew home, and this is where everything kicks off. As they're driving, they see a beam of light piercing through the trees, and at first, they thought this was just the moonlight, it being nighttime, and they thought little of it. But then when they were recounting this experience afterwards, they noted that it didn't quite look right. They said that it appeared to hover around 100 feet off the ground, and Rogers later described the size of this light, whatever it was, as 15 feet in diameter. Now, I do want you to keep these numbers in mind as we talk about one of the theories later on. So, of course, this strange sight not being the moon led the men to pull over. This is when Walton got out of the front seat of the truck in order to investigate whatever this strange light was. So he's walking down the road ahead of the truck. As he approaches the light then releases a blue beam right at Travis Walton. Now, some of the crew who witnessed everything that happened that night said that the beam then lifted Walton off the ground, though not all of them could agree on this fine detail. Either way, after being illuminated by this blue beam of light, he then fell unconscious on the road. The crew then was so distraught that they thought he might have just simply died, and in terror, they sped off into the night, leaving Walton alone in the dark on the road.
I'm sorry, this is the worst group of friends ever. Like, not the realest at all. They just left them.
They just left them.
So, yeah, because you talked about how you drop back down. And so in my head, I was like, okay, where's the whole like disappeared, came back aspect? Right. But they left them. They just like, what do you, I don't, damn.
Mm-hmm.
You just leave a man like that. Granted, yeah, very terrifying, right? They don't want to get involved. They're not like the little aliens in Toy Story where they're like, the claw. And then like, as their friend's being pulled up, he's like, I am the chosen one.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, it's not that kind of situation.
They're like, no, he wanted this. And they speed off.
Yeah. No, he's good.
He's on the road.
He's always said he's been down for this. This is his moment. Let him have it. And it took off without him.
Oh, he was so excited. He just conked out.
Yeah.
Listen, I do want to say, a nugget of information worth holding on to also until the theory is that Michael Rogers, the leader of the crew, is the one driving. But you're right. What a move for the crew to say, whatever, man, let's just everyone for themselves, self-preservation, they speed off. But after 15 minutes, it seems like they all kind of came to their senses. They said, all right, we gotta go back. So they turn around, they return to the site where they encountered the strange light. And of course, as you know, Walton is nowhere to be found. He's not on the road, not on the side of the road. He wasn't even walking down the street. He's just gone, as well as the light that they saw earlier. Now, this is where the timeline gets a little hairy. We looked through all the sources as best as possible to get specific times, but I just wanted to flag that. So at 7:45 p.m., one of the crew members actually called law enforcement to report Walton as missing. Deputy Chuck Ellison met with the logging crew in Heber sometime that evening to discuss the incident in detail. He, along with Sheriff Martin Gillespie and some of the crew members, once again then returned to the location of Walton's disappearance in an attempt to find him or seek any sort of evidence to Walton's whereabouts. Again, we don't know the exact time, and I say only some of the crew because some of them were too afraid to return to the site. They wanted to stay home, safe and sound, where the lights are, where people are. I kind of don't blame them. Now, at approximately 1:30 a.m., Walton's family was officially informed that he was missing. And per author Philip J. Klass, Walton's mother, Mary Kellett, was not surprised by this news. So she told police that she and her other son, Dwayne, had actually seen a UFO several years prior, and on the same night, the same date and everything, November 5th, several years prior. We'll come back to this idea, but keeping the timeline moving, it was the next morning, on November 6th, that a search party of 50 people went out looking for Walton throughout the Turkey Springs area. It's kind of remote enough that someone could get turned around and lost in the woods, so not a bad move. Kind of create that line of people, move through the woods, see if you find any evidence, a shoe, a shirt, a person, what have you. Now, there was no physical evidence at the site of Walton's disappearance. And this is where Kellett actually told police to call off the search. His mom is saying, call it off. And here's what she said, quote, "I don't think there's any use of looking any further. He's not around here. I don't think he's on this earth." End quote.
Okay.
So Mama's just given up. Mama's saying he's with the stars now.
Yeah, Mama big time UFO fan.
Yeah. Well, definitely.
Which kind of goes back to the joke that we were talking about earlier. While, it's like, oh, he's always wanted this.
Yeah, I mean,
it's like, well, he actually came from a family of people that believe in UFOs and aliens
100%.
on a deep level, who have had, they say, their own experiences.
Yeah, dude. I didn't want to say anything at the time, but it's your soothsaying 3 minutes ahead of time.
Right. Yeah. And it's one of those things where, like, that's got to be jarring to, like, different people to hear the mom just in all seriousness say that they're not here. They're probably not even on this planet. Like, and then essentially be okay with what's happening and going on.
It's kind of like she came to terms way ahead of time. And we'll touch on that, I believe, in one of the theories, or at least soon. So hold on to that. So the next day, on November 8th, Rogers, along with Walton's brother, not his mom, his brother, Dwayne, said, don't call off the search, continue it, right? Which they did, wisely. And this time they were using a helicopter to cover bigger area, kind of see that 1,000-foot view, so to speak. And at a certain point, with no sign of Walton, police began suspecting foul play and then started to investigate the other crew members. At that point, November 12th rolls around. 5 days and 6 hours after Travis Walton went missing, Walton's brother-in-law, Grant, received a collect call from a payphone in Heber just after midnight. So for anybody that doesn't remember, a collect call, I believe you call 1-800-COLLECT. It's been a minute since I've seen those commercials, but it's basically just a way for the other person to pay for the call. He receives this call from somebody. Do you accept this call? Sure, it's after midnight, but whatever. This person on the other side claims to be Walton and that he was at an Exxon gas station in town. So at first, of course, he's not believing him. He's like, okay, my brother-in-law has been missing for almost 5.5 days. This could be a prank, whatever. Grant then asks Dwayne to join him, and they want to find out if this is real. They're going to head into town, go to this ExxonMobil, figure it out. On top of that, the call operator who put through the call also recognized Walton's name because they have to ask who it is, patch it to the other person, and so once they connected the call, the operator also called the police. So now, Grant, Dwayne, and the police are all aware that someone claiming to be Travis Walton is on the scene at this phone booth.
Damn. Okay, I like it. I like how it's all connecting, like a movie almost.
It kind of is. So now while Dwayne is going to this location to figure out if Walton's there, the police don't know that, by the way. Officer Gillespie had another officer go to the Walton family home to inform them and to talk to the mother. Say, hey, we believe your son is found. Now, they didn't have a telephone, so this was the best way to let her know. So now we have, yes, everyone knows that Travis might be in play, but Dwayne and Grant are operating outside of the police's knowledge because they didn't call the police themselves. Either way, the two of them find Walton collapsed on the floor of the payphone booth that he called from. And eventually, when the other officer arrives at their family home, it was around 2 a.m., Dwayne had already returned and was outside siphoning gas from one car to another. So all that is to say is Travis has made it home by the time that this officer goes to inform the family. And strangely, they don't make any mention of Travis having returned home to this officer.
Interesting. I guess they want to keep it their own little secret and like, I don't know. Like, why would you not mention that to the authorities? Even for just the sense of they're already using resources to try and find you, this person, and just let them know. But I guess they want to keep it a secret and figure it out themselves?
I don't know. It's definitely suspicious. Maybe they think he's got that UFO dust on him, a little bit of aura. And so he's like, well, maybe the UFO comes back and we all go up in the shit, Maybe they're thinking like me.
Yeah, maybe they want a piece of the action.
Yeah, but it is super suspicious that the police officer says, hey, we wanted to let you know, an operator let us know that there was a call from Travis Walton. He is out there. He's been found potentially. And they're like, yeah, sure. Okay, that's great news. Meanwhile, he's sleeping in the back. Why wouldn't you say anything?
Right. Yeah, why wouldn't you?
Yeah. So let's talk about this aftermath. So after bringing Walton home, Dwayne wanted to get his brother medical attention. Obviously. Again, I don't know why he's not telling anybody, but he wants to get a medical attention. And this again is where the timeline gets a little fuzzy depending on the source you look at. So some sources claim that Dwayne brought his brother to a UFO researcher prior to going to an actual hospital. So this researcher has been, I don't know if they're a real doctor or not. Depending on the source, you see air quotes doctor. But either way, this Dr. Lester Stewart was a hypnotherapist and told Wayne that Walton needed medical attention before he was going to do any sort of hypnosis on him. He was like, listen, you got to go get some lab results. You need to figure out whatever's going on with him before I get involved and kind of get mixed up in sort of whatever medically is happening here.
Right.
And the hypnosis was aimed at reliving and remembering whatever happened that night. I think it's regression hypnosis that they were trying to do. So if you don't remember it, we'll help you enter that state to go back, right?
Good for nosy people. Damn for the person that experienced it, right? Like having to relive a possible trauma.
Yeah.
Now I just still have that image from the movie where it's just like the skin latex transparent thing over the body. Ugh.
No, imagine that happened and you forgot it and then someone said, no, we'll help you remember. And it's that. It's like, hold on, where's the angelic aliens that are going to come down with a blanket of love, that Ryan Gosling sketch? Instead, we got light torture. You know what I mean?
Yeah, pretty much. Like it's terrifying. But I mean, if aliens were to come visit us, they're hyper advanced. They probably look at us as primitive. And then from there, right, what kind of respect are they going to owe us, really?
Yeah.
They're going to go, we're advanced. They're primitive. We're going to learn from them by doing whatever means is necessary, right? It could be a military extension of the alien race.
Could be.
Or like a government section extension. And so look at our government and look at what we do.
Sure.
Look at how we treat creatures on this planet that we deem lesser, So
what if they were just everyday aliens, Just little aliens that had advanced technology and they stumbled upon us. They got no responsibilities. They're not some sort of like official act. They're just like a bunch of teenagers kind of cruising through the galaxy. And they stumble into us and they go, this'll be fun.
Well, they went about it the wrong damn way. And they're lucky that we don't have the ability to track them down or follow them, etc. Like they could have, you know what I mean? If it's a different race, one that's far more advanced, woo.
When we learn to fly, we'll come after you.
Yeah, we'll be back.
We'll be back. Man, I don't know. It's stories like this that make me go, maybe I don't want aliens to be real.
It's just most likely I feel like the odds of it being bad are too high.
There's the bad odds. Yeah, I don't want to roll those dice.
Yeah, I think the odds, I think I lean more towards half. I think it's safe to say probably higher than 33% chance.
Okay.
And so I don't like to gamble those odds. I'm not going to take a 33% chance that if aliens do find us, they're going to be hostile.
Right. There's a 10% chance they're just going to plunk us into some boiling water and eat our legs. You know what I'm saying? Like, who
Jesus.
knows?
Oh my God.
What do you think we do to lobsters, man?
I know. No, I mean, you're 100% correct. Going back to how we treat creatures on this planet.
Yeah.
It's sick.
This episode of Red Web is sponsored by Shopify. If you've shopped online, chances are you bought from a business that was powered by Shopify. You guessed it. You know that purple Shop Pay button that you see at various checkouts online? The one that makes buying so incredibly easy? Well, that's Shopify. And there's a reason so many businesses sell with it, because Shopify makes it incredibly easy to start running your business. Shopify is the commerce platform behind 10% of all e-commerce in the United States, from household names like Mattel and Gymshark to brands just getting started. Shopify gives you that leg up from day one with hundreds of beautiful, ready-to-go templates to express your brand style. And forget about needing to do all that coding yourself. It's so plug and play. I really appreciate that feature. Tackle all those important tasks in one place, from inventory to payments to analytics and more. Spread your brand's word with built-in marketing and email tools to find and keep new customers. And that iconic purple Shop Pay button that's used by millions of businesses around the world, well, it's why Shopify has the best converting checkout on the planet. Your customers already love it. I've used Shopify multiple times in my life, and every single time it's super easy and turnkey, and every time there's more features. I just love how easy it is to have a polished website to display your product. And so no matter what you want to sell, they make it really easy to focus on your product and less on the platform and the selling and all of that. Sometimes you just need somebody else to think about it, and that's what Shopify is very good at. And if you want to see less carts being abandoned, it's time to head over to Shopify. Sign up for your $1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.com/redweb. Go to shopify.com/redweb. One more time, shopify.com/redweb. This episode of Red Web is sponsored by Rocket Money. When it comes to spending, sometimes it's out of sight, out of mind. That daily coffee habit, those streaming subscriptions, all that good stuff, it can add up pretty quickly, even without you noticing. Rocket Money helps you spot those patterns so you can do something about them and keep more money in your pocket. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. See all your subscriptions in one place and know exactly where your money is going. For ones you don't want anymore, Rocket Money can help you cancel them. I use Rocket Money to combine all of the different credit cards I have and kind of assess my spending patterns month to month. It can be a surprise when you look back and you see either how much or how little you spent and what category you spent it in. And so I love that transparency so I can make sure that I'm not overspending, I'm staying within the budget I set for myself. And if I am overspending, what genre? If it's for entertainment or bills or what have you, it kind of qualifies all that for you, which I really do appreciate. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when they use all the app's premium features. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Download the Rocket Money app and enter our show, Red Web, right there in the survey so that way they know we sent you. Support the show that way and monitor your spending all in one go. Don't wait. Download the Rocket Money app today and let them know you heard about them from our show. But coming back, before we move on from him, Dr. Lester Stewart, Dr. air quotes, reportedly said something that is kind of interesting. I don't want to assassinate any character. I don't know this for a fact, but it's something that he claimed. And he mentioned that Walton's behavior in the aftermath here, soon after being found, reminded him of his patients that were struggling with drug addiction. It's a very sensitive topic, but it's something that will kind of come up with another detail soon. So moving from that, we have Dr. Howard Kandel, who was a member of the Aerial Phenomenon Research Organization, APRO. We'll talk about them in a minute, but he visited the Walton home to examine Travis. So Kandel took blood and urine samples and tested him for any drugs, which I assume came back negative because I don't see any other results on that matter, but we will come back to the urine samples. Now, reportedly, Walton was 10 pounds lighter in these 5 days, 6 hours than he was when he was last seen. And the only injury that Dr. Kandel found on him was an injection mark on his inner elbow. So all of the logging crew members underwent lie detector tests after this. So quick medical examination, we have some tests being run. Meanwhile, the police are investigating with lie detector tests, which of course can be falsified, can be faked. They're not 100% effective. But with regards to those tests on the morning of November 11th, only one of them came back inconclusive. The rest passed. So there is something to be said about the fact that they all had kind of shared experiences and shared truths. Whether that says real or not, we'll talk about in the theories.
I mean, the thing is, something could have happened, that their mind may be exaggerated, and that is their shared truth.
Totally.
It doesn't necessarily mean that it was exactly what they think it was. But it is kind of nice to see because it's a variable that's, for the most part, eliminated when They take lie detector tests. They're probably not professionals in it. You know what I mean? You know, they're probably not clenching their sphincter or anything like that to try and like change the gauge.
Right.
And so from there, you like to see that, I don't know, you got to give some trust at some point to some of this stuff, you know?
Sure. They're using the tools at their disposal.
Right. And so I'll take that.
So now this is where the two timelines recoalesce. Dwayne is out here kind of trucking Travis around, trying to figure out what medically is necessary, what tests are being had. Meanwhile, the police are investigating the crew. And now at some point in the days following Walton's disappearance, Dwayne finally and officially makes the police aware that yes, Travis Walton is found. He's with me. Police then requested that Walton also take the lie detector test as well, but he then refused, saying that he needed to recuperate. He was still exhausted from whatever he experienced, still trying to figure things out, trying to recover his memory. Don't want to undergo the test yet. Now, in the days that followed, many news outlets and reporters became aware of the situation and visited the Walton home to interview him and find out what happened. The National Enquirer, a tabloid newspaper, offered to pay for testing in exchange for an exclusive story, along with the help of the APRO. So I mentioned them earlier. The APRO was a UFO investigation group that performed their own investigations. There's a lot of conspiracies around them. I believe some of their work also worked in conjunction with the CIA, but ultimately their organization expanded and became the MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network. And also, for the record, talking about some of the sources that we mention periodically, the National Enquirer is known for this type of catch and kill journalism. They've been involved with a lot of scandals related to smear stories and blackmail. And it sounds like, based on their history and based on this story, that they're more interested in profiting from an exclusive rather than any sort of journalistic integrity. So just wanted to be very candid about that. Ultimately, Walton couldn't remember very much. And then he was put under hypnosis to try to remember more on November 14th. So gradually, it is said that he regained some of his memories while under hypnosis. Walton would go on to claim with these newfound memories that after he was struck by that beam of light, he woke up lying on his back on a table in a room that was very similar to a medical center. This led him to believe that he had been taken to a local hospital. However, things took a turn when he recounted 3 beings standing over him, observing him. They were short and bald and wearing orange jumpsuits. Walton claimed that he tried to fight these beings, which I gotta appreciate a little bit of a scuffle, you know?
Oh, for sure.
That's a natural inclination.
And that will not be taken that easily.
No way. And despite the pain he was in, he did try to put up this fight before a human wearing a helmet and a blue jumpsuit arrived on the scene, guided him into another room. And in that room, it is said that there were humans there that put a mask over his face, and once again, he fell unconscious. From there, Walton remembers waking up on the concrete on the side of the road, and this is what he said, quote, "As I'd raised my head up, a white light caught my eye just before it blinked off. Either a light had been turned off or a hatch had been closed, cutting off the light from inside. I only caught a glimpse as I raised my head. I could not be sure which it was." So basically, he sees a light blink off, whether that's a hatch closing or something turning off. But in front of him, where this light seemed to have come from, he described a silvery disc. It was 40 feet in diameter and was hovering just 4 feet above the road. The object then silently floated upwards before then shooting off into the sky and vanishing, all completely silently. So from this, Walton got up, ran down the highway before eventually finding his way to a gas station, the Exxon, where he then called his sister's house, which is why his brother-in-law answered, because that was the only family member that he knew with a phone. And that is kind of the story and aftermath of,
oh, wow.
Yeah, of Travis Walton.
I mean, even right up until the very end, there was weird stuff happening. Which I guess, like, you know, if aliens had such advanced technologies, then they kind of just get to play by their own rules, you know? And if it's so advanced, they can insert themselves whenever they want.
Yeah.
And so that little bit at the end of like the disc like flying away, and I don't know, like, you know, if it was an alien, were they just like checking up on their like specimen?
Or was he replaced, dude? I don't know about that.
I don't know, man. Take a closer look at this person.
Yeah. Let's just say one of your good friends disappears for 5.5 days, okay? They roll back up. You skirt him around the police for whatever reason you decide. And under hypnosis, they give you a story like this. They're not gone in the woods. They're not gone anywhere on this earth. Like Mama says, he's up in space, memory lost, he's asleep, shows back up. He comes back into your life, otherwise seeming normal. Do you question him? Are you believing this person? Do you have a nugget of doubt forever?
I'm definitely questioning him, for sure. You know, I'm not going to have a friendship in which I cannot speak freely. So I'm questioning him.
Sure.
For sure. Secondly, I'll hang out with them in public.
Hey, come over to my place. I got this new thing. It's a new apparatus. You got to try it on.
Not happening.
And there's this really cool like mask that goes with it. You got to put it on.
Not happening. No.
Come on over. We'll turn the lights off. You'll put the mask on. A couple days will go by.
Hell no. Trying to get me into a vulnerable state of relaxation. That's a trap. Yeah, I'll hang out with them in public and then be very attentive of my food and drinks.
Sure. You know, task force rule number 42. Okay. We don't talk about the rules very often, but rule number 42 is always have a safe word with your buddies. You know,
yes.
You never know when they're going to go get abducted and body swapped. And so you got to have that word.
You got to have it. You really do. And rule number 53, know nothing, question everything.
That's a beautiful rule. And that's why it's also number 54. We just put it twice in a row. But yeah, this case is really, really interesting. I'm very curious to kind of hear your thoughts before I open up some more revelations as we enter the theories, kind of open up some of the controversy that surrounded this particular case. But again, we're talking about a time before the quintessential abduction story has really taken hold. And it's, I think, why this one's so interesting, because it's one of the precursor stories to that. And so it has some really different elements to it. The fighting, the seeing people in jumpsuits. It's not the quintessential, well, I was taken up. The Greys were there with their big black eyes, and they were 3 feet tall with the big heads, and you know, maybe something might have entered an orifice or two, and then I ended back in bed. Right? That's the quintessential. Yeah. So what are your thoughts before we enter the theories here?
I think this is very unique in its own right. You know, I mean, I do see how there's going to be a lot of people questioning this, because there's a family that heavily believes in UFOs, right? So from there, they're more likely to lie about it or kind of extend the story past what it really is. But I think this is very unique in the sense of like someone being abducted, but a group of people were there to witness it. And then on top of that, the person's back, and then that person being back was still experiencing things. It wasn't just essentially a one-off incident. And so I think it makes it very unique in itself. But I can definitely see the issues that other people would have with this instead of outright believing it.
Yeah. It's very interesting, especially since there was the full crew there. You know, you have at least 7 people involved with the initial incident. And as we'll talk about, it's tough to align a bunch of stories. So there is a level of belief in there, but we'll talk about how that also introduces an angle for tomfoolery, so to speak.
Yeah, and it's also like difficult to have that many people all agree on like potentially a lie.
100%. Absolutely. So as with many stories like this, it's really hard. I mean, there are theories within these theories, but it's really hard to dissect it in any other way other than hoax and truth. Now, I don't want to be like wholesale. We're not going to be binary out of this. It's not left or right or, you know, zeros and ones. But let's talk about the hoax angle first. Why people believe that this is a controversial story. What kind of sub-theories fall within the hoax realm. And then why many people believe this to be an authentic UFO abduction story. So UFO skeptic and writer Philip Klass wrote about the Walton incident in his book on UFO cases called The Public Deceived. So he believes that Rogers, the logging crew leader, the one that was driving that night, and Walton together concocted the abduction story in order to break the contract that they had with the national park. Some quick background, right? Remember, they needed to finish out the thinning of these trees by August. They had an extension to November. And it seems that if they didn't meet their deadline, only, as they said, an act of God would prevent them from losing 10% of their payment, which of course, money is a heck of a motivator. And so Klass also argues that Rogers showed a lack of concern, right, for Walton's safety when he was being interviewed by Fred Sylvanus, who was a UFOologist. So during this interview with Sylvanus, for example, Rogers seemed to be focused on something else, the job. And this is what he said, quote, "This contract we have is seriously behind schedule. In fact, Monday, the time is up. We haven't done any work on it since Wednesday because of this thing, and therefore it won't be done. I hope they take that into account," end quote. So he's more worried about getting paid and fulfilling this job rather than his contractor, his buddy, his coworker at least, disappearing for 5 days.
Yeah. See, there's the motivation that comes into play, right? And like you said, money is one hell of a motivator. And if they're falling behind, losing 10%, they don't want to lose that. That could be detrimental to some households. I guess like take the long shot of this fanciful story. Although that does also align with getting everyone to fall into place with this too, you know, because it also is an excuse for the group, not necessarily for one person.
Right. They all have the same usual interest involved. But on top of that, you know, to your point, many argue that it would be very difficult to get all 7 men to agree to one lie, and then in interrogations later to give the same honest answers, especially if they're all passing these polygraph tests together with the same details. So perhaps this is why some remembered extra details that others didn't, you know? Maybe they weren't all involved with this. Maybe they didn't have their story straight because some saw him levitate once the blue beam hit him. Some didn't see that at all. Ultimately, the motivation behind the hoax theory here is that, hey, we're not going to finish the job on time and there's no earthquake, storm, or hellfire coming to give us the out. So yeah, let's take the long shot. So to expand on the idea of the other 7 needing to agree on this hoax or not, it's possible that the rest of the crew themselves was simply deceived, right? So Robert Schaefer of the Skeptical Inquirer argued that Walton had most likely used a nearby fire lookout tower to hide out before his return to town. He also claims that they may have used this very same tower to create the illusion of this unexplained light. So now we're building on the idea, okay, all of this story is predicated on getting this job delayed so we can still get 100% of our money. How do we do it? So Robert Schaefer is implying maybe they used this tower. Maybe that's where they shone the light, and when he collapsed, he fake collapsed. And then Rogers was the one in control of the car, so he speeds off. And then maybe they play it up in 15 minutes. Oh, that's enough time for Walton to disappear. Let's come back to the scene. Oh no, he's gone. Maybe he's hiding out in this tower. So
yeah,
we're building a pretty vivid story here, and it does seem to work.
Yeah, the dots are connecting with this for sure.
Yeah. So earlier I mentioned some dimensions of this light, right? 15 feet in diameter, 100 feet off the ground. Well, that would kind of match the size and dimensions of the average fire lookout tower. 100 feet tall is, you know, I think when I looked it up, watchtowers are typically between 60 and 120 feet. The diameter being the top of the fire lookout tower being 15 feet is well within normal range. And so it does seem to work out. And so since that's the other crew kind of giving those details, maybe they didn't know they were describing the fire lookout tower. So maybe they didn't know that they were breaking the illusion by being honest about what they saw that night because they themselves were being misled.
Right. Yeah, that's true. And then that's how you get everyone else to believe it so heavily, right?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of, I mean, a lot of people to get the same story together and all have that same motive. Like as this escalates and authorities involved and whatnot and publications, it's a lot of pressure to keep that facade. So instead, yeah, maybe a couple of them come up with this grand plan, convince the others, stage this whole play, convince the others, you know, that there's something big happening here.
Yeah.
I can see it.
They're like, well, we can't fake fear, so let's just lie to the boys, you know?
Right.
This episode of Red Web is sponsored by BetterHelp. You know, people today face immense pressure. There's so much going on in the world, whether it's trying to juggle your job, your family responsibilities, whether it's performing or providing, or just keeping it all together. There's a lot to juggle these days. And when I look at statistics, you know, it's no wonder that 21 million American adults suffer from depression, and many times that can go undiagnosed. I just want to say it's okay to struggle, and BetterHelp is here to say that real strength comes from opening up about what you're carrying so you can be at your best for yourself and maybe unburden yourself from what you're feeling. Therapy can be a very touchy subject, and it's a very personal experience. I've gone through my journey, and what I appreciate about BetterHelp's service is that it can be a gateway to people finding help and getting their journey started, because you really need to find the right person to speak to you, and BetterHelp is a great starting point to finding that right person for you. With over 35,000 therapists, BetterHelp is the world's largest online therapy platform, having served over 5 million people globally. And many people say it works, with an App Store rating of 4.9 out of 5 based on over 1.7 million client reviews. As the largest online therapy provider in the world, BetterHelp can provide access to mental health professionals with a diverse variety of expertise. Talk it out with BetterHelp. Our listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/redweb. That's betterhelp.com/redweb. So coming back to Schaefer, he also argued that Rogers took the crew and the police, remember when they revisited the site to look for evidence or anything, he claims that they took the police to an entirely different area from where Walton disappeared. So he assumed this given that they went from a different direction. Normally, to get to that area where they were working, they would take Black Canyon Road south. But for whatever reason, to take the police back to this spot, they took a different route. They took a state road and then took the rim road, which would then move from the west. This would then drive past, I think it's called the Gentry Tower, which is one of the fire lookout towers. And maybe, again, building on this hoax theory, some of this is being claimed. If he was in that tower, maybe this would be a way to tell him that the police were coming, say, hey, we're down here, stay up there, what have you. I don't know. This is arguments, these are assumptions, but they're trying to, once again, connect some dots.
So I'm guessing like the search party wasn't anywhere close to the fire watch?
It wasn't super close, nor was it very far. So kind of building a mental map, this tower, if this is the one he was in, would have been west of the location. The normal road that they took was north-south, and so typically the car would never go that way, so 15 minutes is enough for him to get up off the road and walk away from where they normally would be driving.
Got it.
So it kind of creates a little triangle, if that makes sense. So Class is also arguing that the Walton family were UFO fans. We know this pretty clearly now. In the same interview with UFO researchers, Dwayne claimed that the entire family would, quote, immediately get directly under the object, end quote, if they thought they were seeing a UFO. So Dwayne is kind of defending Walton's actions, but maybe, I don't know, maybe this is actually what the family would do. A little bit me style is, that's a UFO. Get under it. Get in the light. Maybe they got, no taxes and, free popcorn. I don't know.
Maybe it's a party. Man, they're too ready to be abducted.
Or too informed about the hoax and trying to kind of murky the waters, so to speak. I mean, it makes sense. Walton's mother was like, hey, call off the search. Don't even worry about it. It's probably because he's off world. If he saw a light, he totally went to it. So again, I have to ask the question, was she involved with the hoax? Is she defending her son? Or was all this kind of predicated on Walton's fascination of UFOs? Is that where the idea even just came from? Because they were such fans of UFOs.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely, right? Like I said, it makes people skeptic about the whole situation.
Yeah. Rogers is like, we're going to be delayed. There's no way we're going to get this on time. And Walton's like, I got a genius plan. I'm going to get abducted.
I mean, look, it seems to be working a little bit. They got the authorities out there.
It's true.
It's believable enough. They got publications hitting him up, wanting exclusive interviews, rights, and stuff like that. So
yeah. So here's where we get some tangible wrinkles to this story. So Dr. Candle, who had analyzed the sample of blood and urine, right, came back with some results, and he tells Philip Class that there's no acetone detected in the urine sample. Why is this interesting? So if Walton had truly not eaten for 5 days, acetone would have been present in the urine because, I don't know if you know this, I know you work out, so you're pretty aware with like diets and things, but the body enters ketosis when you don't eat enough like carbs or what have you, or anything at all. And so in this process, your blood gets more acidic. It starts to break down fat reserves in order to get you energy. This is naturally going to happen if you're not eating for 5.5 days. And so you would then see from this process acetone entering the blood, filtering out through the kidneys and out through the urine. And since that wasn't happening, the doctor is saying whatever happened, whatever it was, he was eating. So this was either A, a hoax and he was hiding somewhere and eating, or B, the aliens kept him well fed. But then why did he lose 10 pounds in this time? The jury is still out on that one.
Yeah, I mean, if his weight was lower, then he was either exercising like absolute crazy. Because how many days was it? 5 days?
5 days.
And this is confirmed 10 pounds?
I mean, I believe so.
You'll probably shed off 3, maybe 5, just by not consuming what your normal diet is, right? That's just the quick pounds of shreddage that you can get initially.
Sure.
And from there, 5 more pounds, I don't know, walking through the woods, doing some cardio. It's possible.
Yeah.
But like, that's a little tough in 5 days.
It would have to be a lot of water weight. Again, assuming the 10 pounds is actual and not kind of like elevating the story of it all by
Right, a flimsy number.
Yeah, exaggerating. Water weight, if you have a major caloric deficit, but you're still eating carb-based snacks to keep yourself going, I suppose I could see it, but yeah, it's interesting. It's something to think about. Now, this is where it's going to blow away, I think, for a couple of the task force members, just because of this fact alone. So, okay, on top of being UFO fans, the Walton family was also known, who guessed it, for pulling practical jokes.
Ah, there it is.
Yeah.
Damn.
So does that build on the hoax theory more? I would say so, but here,
I would say so.
Here I think is like the final nail in the coffin. We talk about money being a motivator all the time. Sometimes it's a little cynical, sometimes it's well earned. When money is to be made, we talked about this with the Warrens, you gotta take a little bit more of a skeptic look as to the motivations of someone. Are they truly trying to help, or are they just trying to make money at the expense of helping others or whatever? So, I say that because Walton actually did write a book called The Walton Experience in 1978, just a few years after this happened. And of course, as I mentioned, the book then was adapted into a film called Fire in the Sky. And
right.
We often hear times, not every case, certainly, but every now and then, there comes a case across our desk that we go, okay, it does feel like the fact that you then really made money off of this almost invalid. I don't know. I don't want to say it. I don't want to invalidate anyone's feelings, but like if you went through something traumatic, you might want to leave that behind. Not like revel in it and make money off of it, because we've seen both. We've seen people say, hey, don't talk to me anymore about this. I don't want to relive it. I just want to be left in peace. And then we say every now and then, some people go, I'm going on a book tour. I got a book and a movie and a franchise.
Yeah, I'm milking this for all it's worth.
Yeah. To each their own. Again, I don't want to invalidate feelings here, but it is a tough pill to swallow when somebody goes through something pretty bad and then they just turn around and want to make money off of it. It does really help the hoax angle, I would say.
Oh, 100%. It's adding fuel to that fire.
Yeah. Now, I mentioned this earlier, and I want to mention it again here briefly. So Lester Stewart, who I mentioned earlier, kind of discussed the behavior that Walton was showing in those few days right after being found again. And he aligned that with his experience of patients who experience drug addiction. And combining that with the idea of the wound on the inner elbow, the injection site, and that's the only wound that was found on him. Could it be that his weight loss was evidence of drug use during those 5 days? The answer is probably no, given that we didn't see any positive test results.
Right. In a system still, some of them.
Yeah, one would think. But it is interesting that all that is there. And so some people think that, well, maybe it's not that at all. Maybe that is almost like a red herring. And in fact, that's evidence of alien experimentation, that some blood was drawn or injected into something happened during those 5 days, right? So with that said, let's talk about the other theory of what potentially really did happen to Walton, taking it all at face value. There's actually 2 sub-theories of actually aliens being involved or something else entirely. So let's talk about the aliens. Travis still stands by his story even now, 50 years later. And during the crew's lie detector test, they were all asked, quote, "Did you tell the truth about actually seeing a UFO last Wednesday when Travis disappeared?" End quote. And of course, all of them answered yes. And we know, again, that lie detector tests can be fooled, but these are average humans that are not practicing trying to make themselves not sweat, keep their heart rate down, and keep it stable as they lie. That can happen, but for all of them, that's tough. So it's interesting that they all kind of had the same answer. Again, many of them could have been outside of the loop and just being fooled, and so yes, they would be inclined to tell the truth. But you also have the wrinkle of the Waltons being UFO fans. Maybe Walton really did intentionally go into the light to be abducted by aliens rather than pulling an elaborate hoax. That is entirely possible, but there's really not a lot of other evidence that support that. And on top of that, a lot of people point to the fact that this is so different than the quintessential story. I mean, we outlined how it's a little bit different than your standard UFO abduction mold, as class called it. But also, it's early enough that it would make sense. Maybe it helped inspire those ones. I don't know. Listen, there's not a whole lot to say here. I mean, if we had evidence of aliens, we'd have a different conversation.
Oh, completely.
Like living in a different world.
Yeah, the world would be vastly different.
Yeah. The idea here is basically like, is it simpler to just say that there isn't a hoax with a lot of moving parts? It's just something that happened and was weird, period.
Got it.
You know what I mean?
I mean, it's kind of leaning towards that way. You know what I mean? They're UFO fans. They are known pranksters. And then on top of that, there's a motivation of money. And then they obviously exploited the story for money. No shame there. But, you know, it makes it hard to believe that there's truth there.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. We don't ever want to be wet blankets, and I say this almost every episode. We're going to analyze and critique. The thing is, with past episodes, there are some really unique theories. Sometimes we simply can't answer certain facts about the case, like how is there radiation at this site? There's no reason for it to be here. What are these imprints? Those are all interesting nuggets that are kind of like keep the mystery alive. In this case, I think you're right, that the hoax is just so strong, connects so many factual dots, that it's hard to just kind of say, no, I believe in aliens, therefore it must just be. Like, I want aliens to be real. I totally want to walk across one, and I don't want to be shrink wrapped with latex. You know, I want the Ryan Gosling treatment.
Yeah, which probably won't happen.
Probably sure. Won't happen.
It's hard, you know, because again, yeah, you want to believe in this different thing, right? You want to believe in the unknown and everything like that, but at the end of the day, there's a good chance that we would know, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
As opposed to not knowing, and if it was something that was real, especially because, like, sure, maybe the government knows a little something, but if something like this vivid, it probably would be something that wouldn't happen once, would happen multiple times, and then people would have a lot of the same type of stories.
Which kind of happens.
Which kind of happens. But I don't know, man. Like, I feel like they would make themselves known. Like, at that point, like, if they're visiting so much, like, who cares, you know?
Right.
I don't know.
Right. Like, they'd leave some sort of sign in a random corn crop somewhere, you know, in Idaho. And I'd be like, oh, they're real.
Mm-hmm. As opposed to, you know, what did people do? They, like, took boards and used it to flatten the cornfield and stuff.
Right. Crop circles are interesting. There's definitely an art form. But then, you know, people talk about, like, the joints of the crop being like popped like popcorn, and the only way to do that's radiation. Again, that's a whole different topic, but yeah, no, there's a lot of ways to fake crop circles. But as I mentioned, there's kind of two sub theories. One just saying, hey, maybe this was real. Maybe it was real. But an interesting one, kind of proposed by Jillian, it's a little lighter, but I think there's an interesting angle here, is that maybe something really did happen that night. Something that we don't really know, it's unclear, but something real, something physical, other than a hoax. Because remember in our story, on our episode, right, on Betty and Barney Hill, we discussed a theory that something traumatic had happened to the couple, and that maybe this was a way to either stifle that reality, you know, cope with the reality, or kind of create a false memory to protect the self rather than confront the traumatic experience that might have actually happened.
That's true. It very well could be something like that. Yeah, traumatic experience, and then the brain protecting itself from the trauma. Yes. Didn't think about that.
This doesn't say hoax, nor does it say UFO alien. It says that something happened that was strange that night. Some sort of interaction maybe between the crew. Again, I don't want to get any more detailed than that because we're just kind of spitballing a theory here. But it's possible that something more corporeal happened to Walton that night, and we might just never know that truth.
And then the brain will latch on to something that's comfortable.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And in this household, UFOs are like a comfortable conversation and topic.
Totally. You know?
Yeah.
You see something strange, you know, heightened tensions from any sort of possible scenario. And then, you know, to protect the self, boom. Oh, maybe it was just that. Maybe that's easier.
Yeah, I see it.
Yeah. And Betty and Barney Hill, very interesting episode, Task Force. If you haven't heard it, go check it out. Because
it's a good one.
It's another similar UFO story with a lot of interesting details, a lot of curiosities. I think it might have slightly more holes in it left unanswered as compared to this one, but it had that really interesting theory based in history. And I don't want to spoil it too much because I think you should go listen to it because it's interesting.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, this has been the story or the incident of the Travis Walton abduction. Any final thoughts as we come to a close?
Again, like I said earlier, a very unique one. Yes, unfortunately, I kind of lean more towards, they came up with this story and then they profited off of it.
Yeah.
But I mean, still a very engaging story nonetheless.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, how there was a book written and then there was a movie adapted from it. So
there's something
someone
to it.
in that family is a good storyteller.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think I'm also inclined to lean more on the hoax direction. But man, it is a very interesting story nonetheless. Sometimes the story is enough to really want to suspend disbelief and think, is this possible? Where is this coming from? And in this case, hoax it is. But man, we're still on the hunt. We'll find it. We'll find the one case that proves it to all of us. The aliens are out there and that they're gentle, but they also have latex sheets that will definitely torture you in space.
Right. Yeah, double-edged sword. How are they feeling that day?
Oh, man. I don't even want to think about how do aliens wake up on the wrong side of the bed? Do they even sleep?
Probably higher intelligence. There's probably a lack of emotion, to be honest, if they're that intelligent.
Ooh, you think so? Do you think intelligence inherently removes emotion?
I think so.
Ooh.
I think if they're that advanced, they probably have a lack of or a way of suppressing it.
Interesting. Maybe they're AI and they're just running amok, and it's kind of a I have no mouth, but I must scream type of situation where it's just an all-powerful AI that's got no comprehension of emotion. They go, I'll toy with these humans.
Yeah, because it's black or white then, barely any gray areas. It's just ones and zeros.
Yeah. All right. Well, interesting story. Task Force, go check it out if you want to not sleep at night. Otherwise, Fredo, I'll see you right back here next Monday for yet another mystery.